Hello and welcome to Cooking the Books with Heather. Today we're going to be working out of Outlander Kitchen because I've really wanted to make this recipe for a while. We were supposed to go to a potluck tomorrow, but the weather is awful, so it's been postponed. But I decided I would go ahead and make it anyway. We are going to be making the MacKenzies Millionaire Shortbread. Millionaire's Shortbread, sorry. And so shortbread is very Scottish, although apparently the caramel and chocolate, so Millionaire Shortbread is a layer of shortbread with a layer of caramel and then a layer of chocolate. Probably not Scottish. Originally, most likely from the Australian Ladies' Home Journal, but may have been created by a Scottish person who lived there. Who knows? First thing we're going to do is prepare our pan. So this is supposed to be a 9-inch square pan. This is a little above 8, but definitely below 9, whatever. We're going to line it with parchment, but first we're going to put some butter on the inside to kind of keep the parchment, make it stick to the pan so it won't move. What I am going to do, she says just dot it. I'm just kind of rubbing it on there. I keep flat pieces of parchment, and I have cut this in half because it is almost exactly right for 2 pieces to line this, one going each way. So trying to get it in there. It just means I don't have to kind of cut the edges. So I'm going to put a little bit of the butter on that piece so that this piece will stick. And as you can see, I now have a really pretty perfectly lined bottom and sides of this dish. Now I'm going to go wash my hands. So the first layer we need to make is shortbread. And for that, we have some all-purpose flour, some sugar, just plain white granulated sugar, and a little bit of salt. And I forgot to get my whisk. So we're going to kind of whisk this up just to mix it up. There we go. And the last ingredient is butter. So this is unsalted butter. It is cold from the refrigerator, and we're going to grate it in. Not all of this is for the shortbread, but I'm just going to grate as much as I need because we're going to use the rest for another part. So I'm going to kind of use this to hold and grate this in. The last time I needed to grate a lot of butter, I was making frozen biscuits again. I used, so that was frozen butter, but you could do that with this. I used my food processor, and that worked out really well. So I only need some of this stick, so let's do my best to get that. That's about right. I think that would work out really well for this as well, but you probably would want it to come up to room temperature a little bit after you mix it in, because there are no other ingredients here. It's just the sugar, the flour, and this butter. So now we're just gonna mix this up, blending it with your fingertips until it resembles the texture of cornmeal. Because we're not putting any egg, no milk, nothing in this. Sugar, flour, butter. We need to be able to press this into our pan. When I start to grab it now, it kind of comes together a little bit. So hopefully that will be good enough. Kind of looks like cornmeal to me. All right. So now I'm going to get my pan that I prepared. And I'm just going to dump all of this in. Oops, I'm trying not to get it out of the pan. We're gonna press it in to our prepared pan. Feels very floury at this point, but it does kind of hold together as you press. So hopefully that will be good. It's been so long since I've made shortbread, but it is one of my favorites. Usually I buy a big tin at Christmas, but it's really easy to make. All right, so now we're gonna call that good. I'm gonna wash my hands because there's one other step we need to do before we put it in the oven. So now I've got a fork and we're just going to prick it lightly. Kind of falls apart as we prick it. That is not great. Well, I guess we're not doing that part. So hopefully this is okay. We'll see as it bakes. We're supposed to bake it until it's firm and light golden for 30 to 35 minutes. So I'm gonna bake it up and keep my fingers crossed. So I ended up cooking mine an extra 5 minutes or so. So this was in for about 40 minutes. I figure it's a little bit thicker because it's slightly smaller pan. It's not super firm, but the edges are certainly brown and it's sort of got a light golden color all around. So we're gonna hope this is good. We're gonna cool this. It doesn't have to be completely cool, but we're gonna cool this before we continue with the rest of the recipe. Shortbread came out of the oven, I don't know, 5 minutes ago or so. I've got it on my countertop, so it's cooling off pretty quickly. It's still a little warm, but it'll be fine. We're gonna make the caramel layer now. So I've got the rest of that unsalted butter melting here at medium heat. So that's pretty much melted. And now I'm gonna add some brown sugar that I have already measured, just light brown sugar. And the only other ingredient here is sweetened condensed milk. So I've got a spatula I don't much care about to try to scrape the inside because the little sharp lip on the inside tends to scar up the edges of this, and so I just don't want to scar up all of them and create little cuts in all of them. But I like to scrape the inside, especially because it takes so long to get all of this out. All right, that's not bad at all. So we are going to leave this on medium heat and bring it up to a slow boil, a gentle boil. So I'm gonna go take care of getting this out of my way and then we'll start. So for this, we're just going to keep stirring this so that it doesn't scorch. while we bring it up to a boil, get it all mixed together. We'll see how long it takes to come up to a boil on this medium heat. Try not to keep touching it because it will definitely boil faster. We are supposed to stir this pretty frequently so it doesn't scorch. So, we're starting to see it on the edges over there. Just the right light. I can see that it wants to boil in here. I'm not going to call that a gentle boil just yet, but it's really close. I'm going to call that a gentle boil. So there's some boiling across the whole surface, but it's not super hard. But there we go. We got a little gentle boil. Now we're going to turn it down to medium low. Keep it on a 3 on my stove, and we're going to stir it occasionally, and we're going to cook it for about 10 minutes. So it took about 7 minutes for it to come up to a boil. So we're supposed to cook this until it is slightly thickened for about 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and set a timer just to see what it looks, what it looks like after 10 minutes. So we'll know. So it's not just me trying to remember, because I don't always do that very well. And it doesn't say we need to stir this constantly, so I'm gonna not, but also don't want it to burn, so I will be stirring it occasionally for sure. So my 10-minute timer just went off, and it is definitely a lot thicker than it was before. It is maybe not quite as brown as I was expecting from the picture, but I'm gonna call this done. Turn this off, and we're gonna pour this over the shortbread while it is still warm. The shortbread is kind of warm, but really almost room temperature, which is fine for this layer. All right, and we're going to spread it out into a pretty even layer here, edge to edge. There we go. Looks good. If you're really picky about it, you could get an offset spatula and make it perfect. I'm not going to worry about that, but this is delicious, by the way. I have a little taste, but we have to let this cool completely before we add the chocolate layer. So we'll be back probably later tonight to finish that up. So our caramel is at room temperature now. Everything's pretty well set here. Yeah, pretty set. So now it's time to make the chocolate layer. So for this, we're going for chocolate that is mostly chocolate, but also is something you can cut. So it's not like a chocolate sauce. We want it to be pretty solid at room temperature. So we're going to melt chocolate in a double boiler. I don't have a double boiler, but it's really easy to do that in a pot and a heat-proof bowl. So if you have glass or stainless steel, that's great. What you want is boiling water, not fully boiling. You don't want it like super boiling when you're going, but I'm bringing it up to temperature right now. And you want to have boiling water only a couple inches. Definitely do not want it to touch the bottom of your bowl. So a wider bowl rather than a deeper bowl is better. And you definitely want a deeper pot so that the bottom of your bowl doesn't touch the water. So now that my water is boiling, I'm going to turn it to about medium heat because that will definitely keep it boiling. I've measured out the chocolate and we have a little bit of butter. Not very much, just a little bit. This is dark chocolate chips. You can, for this recipe that we're doing, you can use milk chocolate or dark chocolate, whichever one you want. But we're just going to keep stirring it. And one of the potential pitfalls here is if the steam gets into your chocolate can seize up and then it is done for. So you don't want that. But we're just going to keep stirring it until it all melts together. And that shouldn't take too long. You could do this in the microwave as well. The recipe we're doing asks for a double boiler, so that's why we're doing it this way. But in the microwave, you have to be very, very careful to stop and stir and stop and stir. Otherwise, you will very easily scorch chocolate in the microwave. So tempering chocolate is bringing your chocolate up to a very specific temperature and then cooling it down. We don't care about tempering so much here. Tempering chocolate will give you a nice snap on your chocolate after it cools to room temperature. It will break and it won't have a bloom on it. It won't look kind of ashy. Those things are not don't make a difference in the flavor of your chocolate, but it does make a big difference in the texture or the presentation. We're not worried so much about that right now, though. The only thing that really ruins the chocolate, in my experience, is when it seizes. And then it looks kind of curdled. You get sort of crunchy bits that will never melt. But for this recipe, you can use basically any chocolate that you like. I just used what was convenient. You want to use a chocolate that you like to eat for this. And if you use a bar chocolate or chocolate that you can buy in a bar, you'll want to chop that up, because the smaller the pieces are, the easier this will melt together. But I didn't want to chop it, so I chose chips. And I'm going to turn this down some because I'm starting to get some steam coming out of the side, and we do not want this to seize. It's melted, but it's not super smooth. But I think I might be going to have to call it done, because I don't want it to burn and I don't want it to seize, which I feel like it might do if I continue going here. So I'm going to turn this off. And I think it will be good enough for our purposes here. And I'm going to spread this over the top. I think we were really close to seizing. So some of it is nicely melted and some of it is getting a little not. But I think we saved it. I'm gonna keep my fingers crossed. This has to go in, well, it has to be completely cool before we cut it. I'm just gonna put it in the refrigerator overnight, and then I'm going to pull it out and we'll cut it, and I'll show you how I do that tomorrow. We're just going to cut our Millionaire shortbread. I've had this in the refrigerator overnight, but I took it out to let it warm up a little bit, so hopefully my chocolate won't just crack and we can cut it. And we're supposed to cut it into 16 pieces, so 4 and 4. So I've got a knife that has been in warm water, and I'm just going to try to cut it. There we go. That's not too bad.
It's not cracking.
that is not super even, but that's all right. Dunk the knife, warm it up again. Just to see what our layers look like. Here we go. Now I've got to cut more times, but that's basically the gist of the cutting. On this episode of Cooking the Books with Heather, you watched me make the MacKenzies Millionaire Shortbread from Outlander Kitchen, the first one. And I really enjoyed this. I thought it was delicious. It was buttery. The caramel was really easy to make. And it cut well. I feel like the shortbread was a little crumbly, and I don't know if that was my butter, not quite enough butter, a little bit too much flour. I did, I think I measured it by weight. I don't remember actually at the moment, but it doesn't have a weight measurement here. So I probably didn't. So maybe I got a little bit too much flour. Anyway, it still held together. It still worked out really well, and it was delicious. It was very, very, very rich. So I ended up taking the 2x2 squares and cutting them into basically single bite 1x1 squares, and that worked out very well for sharing. But yeah, we really enjoyed it. I thought it was pretty easy. I don't love grating the butter, but I think it probably helps you not work the dough as much. I've never done that for shortbread before, but whatever. And the chocolate melted pretty well. Everything worked out really well. And we all enjoyed it. So everybody in the family liked it. So if you enjoyed watching me make this, please give me a thumbs up. Hit the subscribe button. Share with your friends. You can follow me on all my social media. That's all linked down below to see some of the things that I make outside of cookbooks and some things that I eat at restaurants. And you can subscribe and come back and watch me make something else next week.